The world went white. She tumbled violently, sucked into the churning maw, a helpless rag doll. Water roared in her ears, her lungs screaming, her body spinning in the cold dark. Then silence. The surface disappeared above her, distant and unreachable. Just as the panic clawed its way up her throat, a figure cut through the current like a predator. Jax, a legend who surfed like he was born of salt and storms, reached for her. His eyes locked on Hayes intense, commanding, alive. Time slowed, the chaos muted, as his hand gripped Hayes. The ocean seemed to hold its breath. He pulled her up with raw strength, breaking the surface in a spray of sunlight and air. She gasped, coughing life back into her lungs, clinging to him as a wave crashed harmlessly behind them. On the shore, drenched and trembling, she stared at him. The scars on his face told stories of battles won and lost. He said nothing, just offered a slight nod, the kind that spoke more than words ever could. She felt the world shift. Natalie, they say the ocean gives and the ocean takes. That day, it gave me him. From that moment, the currents of their lives tangled. Natalie, who surfed for freedom, and Jax, who surfed to outrun ghosts, found themselves drawn together by the same force that had nearly claimed her. Days turned into nights on the water, secrets spilling between waves. But the ocean has moods, and it doesn't always play fair. Beneath every calm horizon lies a storm, and the deeper Natalie dove into Jax's world, the more she discovered the darkness he carried. Every sunrise painted the sky gold as Natalie found herself chasing the horizon with Jax. He taught her how to read the language of the swells, how to listen to the silence between the waves. Their bond grew in those quiet moments, when the ocean seemed to belong only to them. Yet, behind Jax's steady gaze, Natalie sensed a storm he never spoke of. Locals whispered of the legend who had vanished for years after a tragic accident, a way that had taken more than his breath, it had taken his soul. Late one night, as the moonlight shimmered on the water, Natalie confronted him. "What are you running from, Jax?" she asked, her voice breaking the fragile stillness. His jaw tightened. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." He told her about the brother he couldn't save, the night he had watched helplessly as the ocean swallowed the only family he had. The guilt had chained him, dragging him under more than any wave could. Natalie listened, heart aching, realizing the man who had saved her was still drowning inside. The next morning, the sea was angry, throwing monstrous waves against the reef. A storm was coming. Against all warnings, Jax paddled out, as if daring the ocean to take him again. Natalie followed, fearless, her voice echoing over the wind. "You don't get to do this alone." The storm unleashed its fury, the waves towering higher than ever. Jax disappeared into a wall of water, and Natalie dove in after him, their roles reversed. Underwater, in the deafening silence, her hands searched blindly through the darkness until contact. She grabbed him, refusing to let go. Together they broke the surface, gasping, the tempest roaring around them. On the shore, battered and shaking, Jax looked at her with something raw, something new. "You saved me," he whispered. Natalie smiled, the rain mingling with her tears. "No, Jax, the ocean did. It just used me to remind you." "Natalie, they say the ocean gives and the ocean takes. That day, it gave me him. But what it really gave us was a reason to live." As the storm cleared and the sun rose over the horizon, they stood together at the water's edge, two souls who had faced the waves and found each other in the wreckage. Natalie arrived with nothing but a battered surfboard and the determination burning in her chest. The small coastal town smelled of salt and secrets, its cliffs carved by years of storms, its people wary of outsiders. She stepped onto the sand barefoot, her gaze fixed on the monstrous waves breaking far offshore. To anyone else, they were walls of death. To her, they were a promise. She was here to conquer them, or be broken trying. Locals watched with narrowed eyes, whispering about the girl who didn't know the ocean's rules. Among them stood Jax, a man the waves once worshipped, now a shadow of his former glory. His stare was sharp, distant, as if measuring her soul from afar. He hadn't surfed in years, not since the night that tore his world apart. Yet when Natalie paddled out, every muscle in his body tensed. The waves rose higher. She dropped in, reckless, heart pounding with a mix of fear and something sacred, her brother's voice in her mind telling her to fly. The board skidded. The lip curled. She was gone, swallowed whole. Jax didn't hesitate. The legend awoke inside him as he dove into the chaos, cutting through the water like a blade. Underneath, in the crushing silence, he saw her spinning in the blue void. Time slowed. His hand reached. Hers reached back. Contact. The surface exploded around them as they broke through, gasping life into the storm. On the sand, Natalie coughed seawater, her eyes locking on the man who had just pulled her from death. He stood over her, dripping and unreadable, his voice low and sharp. "This ocean doesn't care if you're fearless," Jax said, his gaze piercing hers. "It swallows the fearless first." For a moment, neither spoke. She wanted to tell him why she surfed, that every wave was a way of keeping her brother alive, but the words stuck in her throat. Jax turned away, hiding his own ghost of friend he'd lost, the guilt that chained him to the shore. Natalie sat alone, tracing her brother's name carved on her board. Out in the distance, Jax watched her from the shadows, torn between the urge to keep her safe and the storm she was awakening inside him. The ocean roared, a living thing between them, daring them both to face what they feared most. The next morning, the horizon bled orange as Natalie paddled out again, the swell rising like the heartbeat of something alive. Locals shook their heads, murmuring that she was crazy, that she'd never last. Jax stood apart, arms crossed, eyes locked on a silhouette slicing through the dawn mist. Every instinct told him to stay away. He'd buried enough memories in the ocean. But something about her defiance, the way she looked at the waves like they were an old friend rather than a threat, pulled at the part of him he thought was dead. She caught a wave and rode it clean, her body carving the water with grace and raw power. When she reached the shore, dripping and breathless, she found him waiting. "You're good," he said flatly, like it was an insult. Natalie smirked. "You sound surprised." "I'm not. Good surfers die here all the time." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Then maybe you should teach me how not to." Something flickered in his eyes, anger, maybe fear, but he walked away without answering. That night, she saw him again, sitting alone on the cliffs, staring at the dark water. She approached quietly. "You don't surf anymore," she said softly. "I don't need to," he replied, his voice heavy. "That's not why," she challenged. For the first time, his mask cracked. He turned to her, the moonlight catching the pain etched in his face. "I watched my best friend die out there. I told him the wave was safe. I was wrong. I can still hear him screaming." Natalie swallowed hard, her chest tightening. "I lost my brother," she admitted, her voice trembling. "He drowned when I was 16. I wasn't there to save him. Every wave I ride, it's for him." Their eyes locked, two wounds meeting in the dark. The ocean crashed below them, relentless, like it was listening. Jax exhaled sharply, as if letting go of something he'd held too long. "You're going to get yourself killed," he said. "Oh," she whispered, "you're going to teach me how to survive." He looked at her for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Dawn, be ready." From that day, the training began. He pushed her to her limits, forcing her to confront fear with skill, to respect the sea as both a gift and a predator. With every wave, they grew closer, shared glances, unspoken truths, nights spent on the beach with only the stars as witnesses. The chemistry was undeniable, electric. But Jax fought it, terrified that loving her would only lead to another loss he couldn't bear. Then came the storm. The warnings blared. The locals packed up. But Natalie stood at the shoreline, her board under her arm, staring at the massive swells pounding the reef. She wasn't running. "Don't do this," Jax pleaded, his voice breaking. "I have to," she said, tears mixing with rain. "Why?" "Because my brother died afraid. I'm not going to." The storm swallowed her words as she paddled out. Jax cursed under his breath, grabbing his board and charging after her. The ocean exploded around them, waves the size of buildings crashing with bone-breaking force. Natalie dropped into a monster swell, her body trembling with both fear and courage. The board skittered. She fell. The water closed over her like a coffin. Jax dove, tearing through the current with everything he had. Underwater, the world was a blur of darkness and chaos. His lungs burned, but he pushed deeper until he saw her, limp and drifting. He grabbed her, kicking upward with all his strength. They burst through the surface together, gasping and coughing as the storm screamed around them. On the shore, they collapsed in the sand, clinging to each other as if the world was ending. Jax's hands cupped her face, his voice hoarse. "Don't you ever do that to me again." Natalie smiled weakly, her eyes glistening. "You saved me." "No," he said, his forehead against hers. "You saved me." The days that followed felt like a dream Natalie never wanted to wake from. At first, Jax trained her with cold precision, his voice sharp, his instructions relentless, but soon the edges softened. On the water, they became more than teacher and student. He pushed her to master every drop, every break, every dangerous curl, and in return she reminded him what it felt like to live without fear. They laughed between sets, shared long glances as the sun bled into the ocean, and somewhere between the foam and the firelight, the walls they had built began to crumble. One night, the entire surf crew gathered around a bonfire, the flames dancing against the dark sky. The smell of salt and smoke hung heavy as guitars strummed and bottles passed around. Natalie sat close to Jax, the warmth between them more than just from the fire. She told him about her brother, how he had taught her to surf, how the ocean had stolen him, and how she'd been chasing his ghost ever since. Jax's hand brushed hers, tentative but electric, and then he spoke, his voice low, almost lost to the crackle of flames. He told her about his best friend, the one he couldn't save, the night he swore never to set foot on a competition board again. Under the stars, two broken hearts found solace in each other's scars. For a moment, the ocean didn't seem so cool, but peace never lasts. Word spread of a brutal surf competition coming to town, the kind that drew the world's best and swallowed the weak. Natalie's eyes lit up at the challenge, her chance to prove herself not just to the world, but to the memory of her brother. Jax saw that fire in her eyes and it terrified him. "You're not ready for this," he said, his voice tight. "I have to try," she shot back. "It's not worth your life, Natalie. It's my life to risk." The argument burned hot, their connection fraying as pride clashed with fear. She signed up anyway. Jax watched from the sidelines, his chest a battlefield of dread and longing. The morning of the competition, the waves were merciless, the kind that could crown you a legend or bury you. Natalie stood on the shore, board in hand, trembling but unbroken. Jax stormed up to her, his voice raw, almost breaking. "I can't watch someone else I care about disappear under those waves," he shouted, his eyes blazing with something she'd never seen before. For the first time, Natalie realized the depth of what he felt. His fear wasn't just about the ocean, it was about losing her. The words hung between them, heavier than the storm building offshore. She touched his face gently, her own voice trembling. "Then trust me to come back." As she paddled out, the crowd roared, but to Jax, everything went silent except for the pounding of his heart. The first wave rose like a wall of glass, and Natalie took it head-on, her body carving the water with fearless grace. For a moment, she was flying, the ghost of her brother riding with her. But as the swell grew monstrous, the ocean decided to test her. The board wobbled, the lip curled, Jax's chest tightened. The wave consumed her, a wall of roaring water collapsing into chaos. For a heartbeat, Jax stood frozen, the world around him dissolving into silence except for the pounding of his pulse. Then instinct ripped through him. He grabbed his board and launched into the surf, cutting through the foam with the desperation of a man who refused to lose again. The crowd shouts blurred into the wind as he paddled hard, eyes scanning for any sign of her. Underwater, Natalie fought the pull of the ocean, every muscle screaming, every second stretching into eternity. Darkness swirled around her, memories of her brother's last moments flashing like lightning in her mind. She kicked, lungs burning, reaching blindly for the surface until her hand met another. Jax's grip was fierce, unyielding. With one powerful pull, he yanked her upward, the surface exploding as they broke through together, gasping in the storm's fury. He dragged her onto his board, arms wrapped tightly around her trembling body. "Stay with me, Natalie. Stay with me," he shouted over the waves, his voice breaking. She clung to him, half conscious but alive, as he powered them back to shore. The crowd parted as they collapsed onto the sand, breathless, battered, but alive. Natalie coughed, opening her eyes to find Jax's face hovering above Hayes, wet with both seawater and tears he couldn't hide. "I told you not to do this," he whispered, his voice hoarse with fear. "You came for me," she rasped, a faint smile on her lips. "I always will," he said, and this time the words felt like a promise he could finally keep. As the storm broke and sunlight pierced through the clouds, the crowd erupted in cheers, but Natalie and Jax only saw each other. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only thing anchoring him to the world. Later, as they sat wrapped in a single blanket by the shore, the adrenaline fading into quiet, Natalie leaned her head on his shoulder. "You were right," she murmured. "The ocean doesn't care if you're fearless." He kissed her hair, his voice soft. "No, it doesn't. But I do." The competition roared to life under a bruised sky, the ocean seething with towering swells that tested even the bravest souls. Natalie stood at the shoreline, board in hand, heart pounding in rhythm with the crashing waves. The announcer's voice boomed, the crowd buzzing, but all she heard was her brother's voice deep in her memory. "Fly, Natalie, fly." She paddled out, slicing through the churning water, determined to face the storm that had haunted her since childhood. From the cliffs, Jax watched every move, his jaw clenched, his chest tight with dread. Every muscle in his body screamed to stop her, to drag her back to safety, but he knew this was a fight she had to win. Still, when the largest wave of the day rose like a wall of living glass, he couldn't stay put. He grabbed his board and charged into the surf, torn apart by fear and the love he could no longer deny. Natalie paddled hard, her arms burning, her breath ragged, the monster wave towering above her like an unforgiving god. She dropped in, board slicing the face of the swell as she rode down its massive curve, every ounce of her being focused on survival. The wave snarled, closing in to swallow her, but she carved a perfect line, dodging the collapsing lip with impossible grace. The crowd erupted, voices echoing over the storm. Jax caught sight of her just as she emerged from the barrel, radiant against the chaos, standing tall like a warrior reborn. For a heartbeat, time stopped. She had done it. She had conquered the wave, and in that moment, she had conquered the fear that had chained her for years. When she hit the beach, breathless and trembling, Jax was there, grabbing her, lifting her into his arms as the crowd cheered around them. "You did it," he said, his voice cracking. "No," she whispered, tears mixing with seawater. "We did it." As the sun dipped low, painting the sky with golden fire, the two of them paddled out together one last time. The ocean, calmer now, seemed to welcome them. They caught the same wave, riding side by side, laughter spilling into the wind as if they'd been born again. They carved through the water in perfect harmony, two souls healed by the very thing that once broke them. When they finally reached the shore, the day was fading, and the horizon stretched endlessly. They stood barefoot in the sand, their hands brushing, their eyes locked on the infinite blue. Natalie's voice was soft but steady, carrying over the sound of the waves. "The ocean doesn't just take," she said, her gaze shimmering. "Sometimes, it gives back everything you've lost." The sky turned to a canvas of purples and gold as Natalie and Jack stood still, fingers laced, breathing in the scent of salt and new beginnings. The cheers of the crowd faded behind them. There was only the rhythm of the tide and the feeling that, for the first time, neither of them was alone. Jax looked at her, really looked at her, as if he'd been holding his breath for years and only now could exhale. "You changed everything," he said quietly, his voice almost lost to the wind. Natalie smiled, the kind of smile that carried a lifetime of pain transformed into strength. "No, you just remembered how to live." They walked slowly along the shoreline, the water lapping at their feet, the fading light casting long shadows that stretched out toward the horizon. Behind them, the ocean whispered like an old friend, its fury spent, its heart calm. Later, under a blanket of stars, they sat side by side on the sand, a small fire flickering between them. No words were needed, the silence was full of unspoken promises, the kind that didn't need to be said to be real. Jax reached into his pocket, pulling out an old, weathered pendant, a small shell strung on a faded cord. "It belonged to my friend," he said softly. "The one I lost. I kept it all these years, trying to make sense of why I lived and he didn't." Natalie touched the shell gently, her eyes meeting his. "You saved me," Jax, maybe that's the reason. He tied the pendant around her neck, his hands trembling slightly. Then it's yours now. You carry it. You carry us. The night wrapped around them, and for the first time, their scars felt like something beautiful, proof of survival, proof of love. They leaned into each other, the crackle of the fire blending with the endless hush of the waves, and the stars above bore silent witness to their healing. At dawn, they returned to the water one last time. The ocean was glassy, the sunrise spilling gold across its surface. Together, they paddled out into the quiet expanse, the world still sleeping behind them. The first wave rose gentle and perfect, and they caught it side by side, gliding effortlessly across the shimmering blue. They didn't need to speak. The ride said it all. As they reached the shore, the camera lingered on their footprints in the wet sand, two trails merging into one. The tide slowly washed over them, erasing the past but leaving the future untouched. Natalie turned to Jax, her hair glowing in the morning light. "Ready for the next wave," she teased. Jax grinned, a rare, unguarded smile. "With you? Always." They stood there as the sun climbed higher, the ocean stretching out like an endless promise.